welcome. That's so lovely to see so many eager faces in the crowd. A very warm welcome to you on behalf of Architect and Interiors India and Design Debate. I am Alicia. I'm the sub-editor at ITP India, and I will be your host for this evening. So let me start by telling you a little bit about our property. It's our flagship property, Design Debate, and what we try to do is go to various cities, a new city every month, and take on really contested topics in the field of architecture and design. We have conducted 10 editions across the country so far, and we've traveled the length and breadth of the country. And we realized after conducting 10 editions that we simply could not ignore our home ground, Mumbai. And so for our 11th edition, we are here, and we have some spectacular speakers lined up for you today. You're going to hear a lot about the theme from everyone else who comes up on stage today. It's aesthetics versus economics, and it's a relatively new theme that we have introduced for Design Debate. But my only request from the crowd right now would be that we have a lot to celebrate today. We have a lot of really celebrated names amongst us, and they'll be taking the stage and delivering a really keen insight into the way their practice works. So I really hope that you continue with the applause and the applause does not die down. So welcome to an evening replete with knowledge sharing, and welcome to Havels Presents Architect and Interiors India Design Debate, the Mumbai edition. Let us have a huge round of applause.
Thanks, Alicia. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Namaskar, Mandali. Finally, after touring the country, we are back on our home ground with the 11th edition of Design Debate. Mumbai, the city of dreams, the city that never sleeps, a karma bhumi, probably one of its kind on this planet, and of course, the financial capital. The city with natural mix of architectural styles from neoclassical, Victorian Gothic, Art Deco, India's Saracenic, and contemporary architectural styles. There can't be a better place to discuss on today's topic, aesthetics versus economics, when it comes to business of architecture. It's my absolute pleasure and honor to welcome you all to this Mumbai edition of Design Debate. It's overwhelming to see you all in person and to see the hall full to its capacity. I am humbled by the warmth and love extended to us, and a big thank you to all of you for braving the traffic and being here today on time. A huge round of applause for each one of you for being here today and helping us make this event possible. Past couple of years have been really challenging for us, and especially the design and construction industry. The pandemic has definitely changed the way we work and the way we conduct our businesses. But before that, let me ask, do we really consider architecture as a business? Do we? Many of our designer friends are still hesitant to consider it as a business. The most common complaint I hear from architects is that architectural school didn't teach them enough about business of architecture. Although students take a professional practice course in architectural schools, but most begin their career knowing very little about business. As young professionals, you might not think it's important for you to know about business. Besides, you are just a CAD jockey or a BIM ninja or a design maverick. But I believe the better you understand the design fees for a project, the better you can manage your time, which in turn will increase your chance of the project being successful and profitable as well. This will definitely improve your chances of promotion and will help you to prepare for future leadership roles. Please do not underestimate its value. You may broadly classify the business of architecture in two parts: your money, or the architectural firm's money you are working for, and the client's money, of course. You must manage both efficiently to run a successful architectural firm. If you falter on any one of them, the later will follow. Today's design debates brings together subject experts in the field who will touch upon the mentioned points and on the immediate and long-term challenges facing architects. We'll chat with these leading design experts and learn from their experiences and expertise on how we can prepare ourselves better to survive and succeed and make an impact, keeping economics in mind, at the same time not compromising on the design aspects. So let's hear it out from the experts in the field, from our esteemed panelists, of course, as which side they are on. We are fortunate to have very senior dignitaries like Ratanji with us, who have created many landmarks, have shaped the skyline of the city. A big thank you to all our sponsors for believing in us and helping us bring this event to this buzzing city to deliberate on these pertinent questions. A big thank you to Havel's, our presenting partner, our exhibit partner, Duro and North Ceiling Solutions, Lalit, our hospitality partner. Thank you so much. I'm falling short of words to express my thanks and gratitude for all the warmth, enthusiasm, and support you all have extended to us today. And my humble apologies to people who we were not able to allow them because of the limited capacity. Though our hearts are big, but the hall capacity is limited. So for them, we have taken the event online. My team is telling me there are 2,500 people who have joined us online for this event. Glad we took it online. Good evening to all who are watching us live. Also, let me take this opportunity to thank and shout out to my incredible team who have toiled to put this event together. Please join me to applaud young and very talented architect, sub-editor ITP Media, today's MC and curator for this event, Alicia Lard, Sumisha Gilotra, editor, architect and interiors India, for her guidance and support, Tarun Ledvani, Sheetal Saldana, Priyanka, Girish Mishra, Johnson, Raj Ramani, who was coordinating with you all, and Shivali Kundar, our marketing and social media expert, who is helping us to reach out to the live larger audience today. And of course, a huge round of applause for our mentor, our inspiration, our guide, the man himself, Vibhor Srivastav. Without further ado, let me hand over the forum to Alicia. Sit back, relax, and enjoy your evening. Thank you.
I would now like to call Mr. Rajesh Pillai, National Sales Head, Professional Lighting, Havells India, to deliver the welcome address. Can we have a huge round of applause for him?
I'm absolutely delighted to welcome all of you for this to this Design Debate Mumbai edition. I'm Rajesh Pillai, Sales Head, Havells Professional Lighting. I'd like to thank all the distinguished guests, all the associates, all the partners associated with the event, all ITP team members, my colleagues and friends in the industry for gracing this occasion. I'm super delighted that all of you could make it here, beating the Bombay traffic on a Friday evening. Commendable. So Havells has been associated with ITP for quite a bit time. We have been doing many events with them on picking up some important topics like maybe smart office, smart manufacturing, then smart healthcare, construction week, different design debates. So which are quite relevant to the industry. So and we have been consistently doing this across the country. And even in today's event also, we are having two fascinating topics for discussion. One is this aesthetics and economics, which is quite relevant for any commercial space in today's scenario. So we are very delighted that, and I guarantee that, your next 1 hour or so is going to be quite engaging and quite meaningful. So without taking too much time, I'd like to hand over to Alicia. So thank you all once again and have a great evening.
Moving on to the next segment for our evening, our guest of honor, I'm sure, as you all know, needs absolutely no introduction. He is the esteemed, the honorable, the powerhouse, architect Ratan J. Batliboy, director and principal architect at Ratan J. Batliboy Consultants Private Limited. And to introduce him as well as felicitate him, I would like to call the ever-dynamic Mr. Vibhor Srivastava, Managing Director, ITP Media India, on stage. Let us give him a huge round of applause.
What do I say? I'm absolutely delighted, humbled, overwhelmed with the emotions, and to this young team of ITP who work tirelessly throughout the days and forget about the weekends to put something which is so meaningful, so credible, and so neutral, which allows knowledge sharing at the highest level. And I think big hand to this wonderful team of mine. And yes, you can't be conservative in this. For the moment, and when we got this confirmation, of Mr. Ratan Bartley and I was so very delighted. So very well done, Alicia, for this. Tremendous. And sir, very big fan of yours. Your body of work speaks volumes, and I think the hall itself will echo the sentiments that I stand and share with everybody. Having established his firm in 1988, Ratan J. Bartley practices what he calls charismatic architecture for spaces that make connections and highlight sensibilities. His work spans across numerous scales and typologies, and he's the mastermind behind many grand projects across our country, including the Sidco Exhibition Center, Vashi, the Mehrangarh Fort Present Master Plan, Jodhpur, the Students' hostels at IIT Powai, and the refurbishment of Marine Drive, Mumbai, among many more. His integrated approach to design manifests as contemporary works of timeless charm. One of the most significant architects in the country, who's taking steps towards to be reckoned with the fraternity. It is a great honor to have him grace this evening as our esteemed guest of honor. Please give it up for Mr. Ratan J. Bartley. It should be louder, people. Yeah, let's hear it. Awesome. You are such lovely people. And may I have your company, sir, on stage, please, sir.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I don't see myself the way everybody introduces me, but and it's not humility. It's just that there's so much more to be done, and we're sort of doing our little part. I also asked Alicia if I should bring anything along, and she said, no, it's okay, just come, we'll put a garland over you or whatever it is that you do to felicitate people. And she said, you know, maybe you'd like to say something. So in the taxi coming here, I sort of scratched out what I'd like to say. And I think it's great that ITP is doing this in terms of just this interesting debate. It's been one of these things that we've been talking about for very, very long, aesthetics versus economics. The title implies that it's an either-or situation, but it's actually very complex in reality. Both the terms in the title are very relative. Aesthetics is very relative, subjective. Economics also, I mean, you can talk about any aspect of it, wherever, however, whichever. Depends on who's talking and who's listening, and who's talking to who and where. I think the aesthetics in the simplest form alludes to visual beauty and harmony, whereas a more robust and pluralistic and performative nature of aesthetics has emerged over the years. Today, it encompasses spatial, functional, socio-psychological, environmental, technology, sustainability, legal, regulatory, also several economic criteria. I mean, aesthetics is a word that's used very, very loosely in today's context. If we see and glorify architecture with its aesthetic expression alone, we align with this quotation that says, all art as a means of expression, and that which may be right for one artist may be wrong for another. And this is about artists alone, yeah? The trained eye, the sensitive souls. At a city scale, we're aesthetically bankrupt. This is what all of us architects are constantly bitching and moaning about. Alluding to, hey, look at this city and where it's going and what people are doing to this city. But the citizens of Mumbai have a different point of view completely, be it how our public buildings are lit, or be it how art has been sort of manifesting itself prolifically over the walls and any little spaces in India, in Bombay. The masses just love the shit that's being thrown at them. They're proud of the way the city looks. These days, it has absolutely no aesthetics sometimes where we are concerned, but guys love it. That's the subjectivity of the whole thing. It has a huge cost. So that's where the economics comes in as well, okay? I mean, the numbers are scary. You could have used these numbers, the crores spent on the beautification of Mumbai, as it's called in these past few years, in these past few months or weeks, could sort of, give people food on their tables or places to stay or whatever it was. The arguments in the aesthetics remain. The subjectivity is the great divide. Economics sometimes sees it's pretty black and white. Numbers are pretty black and white. If we say economics drives the built form and dictates trends, then the aesthetics of a built environment drives the brand image of a building, of a city, of a government. It promotes tourism and boosts the economy. So it's pretty circular in that sense. Or we can say that economics drives the built environment. Capitalism has a demonic appetite to build and rebuild, and the built environment both expands and expends this capital. So again, it's a cyclic situation. It's pretty circular in its space. In this synergistic relationship, it would be interesting to see how architects perceive the current dynamics in and through their practices. I'm really looking forward to hearing both the debate tables, okay? The youngsters from the hope, aspiration, fervor, passion. The older guys may be slightly cynical, maybe sort of been there, done that, maybe having very, very strong points of view. But I think it's going to be extremely exciting for me to figure out where this is going. The theory of EFAB is basically an econo-functional aesthetic balance. It's all about balance. You can't have so much of this and so little of that, or so little of this and so much of that. It doesn't work. I think the most important thing that all of us strive for is a balance, be it in our practices, be it in the way we perceive our cities, be it in the way we are tolerant of the people that use our cities, the culture, the dynamics, the basic problems that we have in a Bombay. As a designer, we can probably bring a viewpoint of not just aesthetics, but also of economics and usage. Design for us is a way of life. It's a point of view that we have, and this entails both the aesthetics and the economics. I'm going to quote here saying that the greatest architectural creativity springs from respect for the factors that constrain the design. I think the most important things that we've done is when we have had no resources. The most creative things that we have done is when we had the biggest challenges of either land or permissions or client changes or minds changing or even arguments between husbands and wives. Another classic that one keeps hearing is you get what you pay for. And I'm trying to put this question on the table, which is, would we compromise as architects? Would we compromise our design to suit the economic package? Or would our design be run irrespective in terms of just being utilitarian, to being functional, to being what we're supposed to be doing in any case as professionals? My points of view are pretty much defined by this whole concept of cost, price, and value. So just to give you an example, the cost of a car may be pretty much, 2 lakhs of rupees in terms of material. The price is pretty much in the region of about 20 lakhs. And the value, to me, if I'm looking at this as my only car, my first car, it's incredible. If I'm looking at it as one of those, things that I had to do for a utilitarian perspective, it's completely different. If I was buying it for my father or buying it for my wife or buying it for my son, it's a completely different story. So this cost, price, and value is quite an interesting sort of a sort of idiom that I'd put on the table in terms of how we would appreciate the economics that happen. We've been debating for decades on this classic, which we've all been brought up on, saying that form follows function. How many of you guys have heard this before? We've been brought up on it. I think with this debate, we may be changing it to form follows finance. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I think you can tell from the silence in the audience how riveting that conversation was. Mr. Vibhu Srivastava and Mr. Rajesh Pillai, if you could please join us on stage for the felicitation. Let us have a huge round of applause. Thank you so much, sir. I would now like to call Mr. Tejas Chodankar, Head Specification and Solution Group, Western Region, Professional Lighting, Havells India, to stage for an insight into the brand. Let us have a huge round of applause.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tejas from Havells India, and I take the pleasure to present Havells Professional Lighting. Can we have the AV, please?
Havells India presents Impressions, a range of superior glare-free architectural lighting solution. With inbuilt occupancy and daylight sensor, the product has a self-learning feature of occupant light preference and maintains desired lux level. Havells Impressions range, the new paradigm of architectural lighting.
Yeah, so the topic that we'll talk today is about rethinking workspaces. So when we say rethinking workspaces, we can say that past 2 years have been redefining the workspaces, how we use them, what are the preferences of people working in that workspaces. So we'll look at how lighting plays an important role in terms of enabling people to work efficiently in ways of using human-centric light. And we'll also see how Havells can partner with designers in terms of product offering to enable them to use human-centered lighting and make the workspaces more efficient. So there was a survey by Gensler in 2021 regarding the preferences of people after the pandemic, how would they like to work. So it's very interesting here to see that if you see on the left, 16% of the people feel that they should be full-time in the office, whereas at the extreme right, you can see there are 17% of people who feel that they should be working from home completely. But the majority, 67% of people, think that they should work in a hybrid mode, which says that they would like to work for some time in or from office and some time from home. So the point we would like to draw here is that people are now very much comfortable working in a hybrid mode of workspace. So the workspace has to be more warm, more engaging, and it should enable people to be in their comfort and work efficiently. So now the question would be that this survey would be skewed towards certain set of professions, but it is not that way. If we look at the chart here, the percentages are almost the same across industries, whether it is science, technology, consumer, retail, and media. So this shows that that's every people from all the eras, they like to work in the same fashion. So now these are the certain reasons, top reasons why people think or why people think they should be coming back to office. So if we list down if you look at the first 8, 9, 10, so the need to socialize is the key here, or the cue that we take. So people want to come back to office because they want to socialize with their colleagues. They want to have access to specialized technology and support, to meet people in person, or to be part of the community. So in totality, people want to come back to office to collaborate, learn, focus for the health, well-being, benefit, and technology. So this is a typical circadian rhythm, what we follow. So divided into 24 hours, right from the morning we wake up, the energy levels are different, until the time we go back to sleep. So it is staggering 10% of errors or fatal incidents happen just because people are not in tune to the circadian rhythm. So there are a lot of errors that can be fatal. So this is a major cause, an alarming reason for us to understand how workspaces affect a human being. So whether there is a need for human-centric design. Now, I understand there are a lot of people over here who might apprehend that human-centric is a little bit of an overrated theme. People are not going gaga about it. But let's see what impact it has in terms of having human-centric designs and how it can enable a person to work efficiently. So this is as per the research. This is not some figure from some newspaper. These are research-based papers wherein enhanced office designs have shown to improve employee well-being up to 31% and productivity up to 15%. So which directly proportionate to the business performance. While understanding human-centric lighting, we should look at three key elements. One is personalization, second is circadian, and daylighting. So when we say personalization, it might happen, a certain individual might have a certain intensity of light that is used to work. So there should be a mobility or that freedom for the person to have different intensity requirements. As per his intensity requirements, he can work in that atmosphere. We also look at harvesting of daylighting, wherein we minimize the impact of artificial light. So there is a light and dark cycle that we all go through. So and which impact us in secreting of these four major hormones. So having a balance between the color temperature, what we work, so that is very much crucial to our well-being. So these are the benefits what we can derive from human-centric lighting. So all these different applications wherein human-centric lighting can be used, majorly healthcare, education, workplace, industry, and retail, wherein the light affects the mood of the individuals, and it results into faster recovery. In terms of students, it will help to increase concentration. So while we are talking about lighting, we should also look at the quality of light. So as per the LEED and WELL standards, so these are the basic parameters which looks at the quality of light. While we talk about UGR, the glare, the CRI, then the uniformity of the light. So these are all things which defines the quality of light. Now we'll just run through the theme of this evening today, that is aesthetics and economics. So we'll run through different product offerings that we have in terms of having a balance between aesthetics and economics. So these are for the indoor commercial, wherein you can see more and more places are now turning into warm places. Offices are no like traditional offices as earlier. And not to forget, there is also a portion, there is also a study which says there is a lot of light pollution. So we also have certain product offering with the unidirectional light, which reduces light pollution and offers well-being in the external space as well. So we'll play a small AV and then we'll finish the presentation. AV, please.
The stress of competition is forcing company employees to spend more time at the office and many a times, late in the night. This somewhere desyncs people with local time and distorts natural system, which results in long-term health and behavioral issues, resulting in decreased efficiency. There are two ways to increase your output: either put in more hours or work smarter, and Havells knows how to work smart indeed. Always working proactively to make a difference to its customers' lives by introducing new technologies. Havells is now innovating human-centric lighting by taking advantage of LED's real-time color and light level changing capability. With this new innovative Havells lighting system's tunable white technology, discover a new way to increase efficiency, improve profits and do business the smart way. Havells, making a difference.
Thank you for your attention and have a great evening. Thank you.
And now, let us move on to one of the most awaited parts of the evening as we kick off our panel discussions, starting with the dynamic, they're very excited as you can see, the next June panel. And to start, I would like to call Mr. Praveer Sethi, founder, Studio Hinge, on stage. Please give it up for Praveer.
Hi, good evening. I'm Praveer Sethi from Studio Hinge. Big thank you and warm welcome to everybody. Thank you to ITP. I think initiatives like these are always good because it gives us a chance to stop in our tracks in the course of our practice, which we rarely do, and introspect on things that somehow make up the bigger picture. And I think we're all guilty of this. We get so caught up in the daily sort of rat race or in the cogwheels of our practice that we don't often take the time out. So thank you guys for giving us the opportunity. I'd like to briefly introduce my co-panelists, the very dynamic next-gen crew. So to start with, can I call up on stage Ahana Miller, Principal Architect from ABM. Apurva Parekh, if you would come up on stage, please. Apurva is founder and director of the eponymous Apurva Parekh Architects. Karan Desai from KDAD, Principal Architect. And last but not the least, the towering Gaurav Sanghvi, Principal Pentaspace Design Studio. I'd like to, if I may, give a slight introduction. And I think I'm going to stand here on the shoulders of the people who have spoken before me. Ratan, who's been a mentor and an employer, if I might add, and Indrajit, who's been a friend since a long time. Indrajit spoke briefly about college and academics not really preparing us, and I think this is true not just in architecture, but in any profession. There's no school that I know that prepares you adequately for what the profession in the real world is going to be like. But certainly about economics, I mean, we all came in with sort of stars in our eyes. We came in thinking we're all artists, and no one told us that we're going to have to deal with money and things like, and budgets and economic crises and things like this. I read somewhere once, and I can't remember, I think it was in a newspaper, but it described, it was having these profiles on various professionals, and it spoke about the architect as this permanently aggrieved sort of, sorry, I'm going to go male for a second, but bearded sort of kurta wearing, chola and kolhapuri carrying, engaged, I think, what was the term, engaged in a mortal combat with the bitch goddess of commerce. And it really resonated with me because it was only until, I think it was the third year of architecture where I found out what architects actually get paid when we graduate. It was quite demoralizing and quite eye-opening as well. So nothing that happens at college really prepares you for this profession. But I think this sort of bearded, unshaven kolhapuri and chola and kurta is perhaps a slightly antiquated notion on my part, as the very sharply dressed next-gen panelists to my left will display, no doubt. I like from what Ratan said to dwell for a second on this idea of cost, price, and value. I think that's very poignant, and it's something that I'm going to come back to, hopefully, if we have a moment at the end, because I think, yes, money is very rarely subjective, but what the value is of what the money can buy is very, very subjective. So I think I have to thank Ratan for that, and I'm going to try and come back and touch upon that. The gentleman and lady to my left and right comprise the next gen, which means that they are not completely jaded. The stars have not been completely wiped out of their eyes. And so this is the fresh perspective before we give way to the esteemed sort of doyens. So I'll jump right into it. Architecture is always a balance between tradition and technology, between form and function. Where do you think architecture lies on the spectrum between art and business? And how does your practice maneuver this polarity? If I could, I'd like to start with Ahana here.
I come from a background where my father's an architect, my mother's an artist, so I have both worlds, colliding. I work with both my parents. What I found was when I came back from the US, I joined my father's practice. I said, I don't know how you run your business. Like, this is not the way. So he said, why don't you visit a couple of the other architects' offices? Find out how they work, what can you improve, what can you do? I visited a couple of architects, including Ratan's office, and I came back and he said, so what did you learn? I said, I learned nothing because every architect has a different way of practicing their business. You know, it's not about art, it's not about economics, it's just a mix of everything. And I think what we do, how we practice, is definitely a balanced approach. So while I can't completely ignore the business side of it, I try as much as possible to include some processes into the practice so that a lot of stuff is streamlined and that I'm not spending all my time on the business side. And I mean, we are all designers, so I think that's what we do best. So I think finding that balance is good. And also have to say, we have a big generation gap. So me and my father, there's a huge gap between us. And I think him coming around and embracing what I had to offer was a huge advantage, and it helps us, you know, run the firm and, you know.
Thanks, Anna. Apurva, you have a take on this? How does your practice maneuver these kind of polarities?
So when we established Apurva Parikh Architects way back in 2018, certain interesting projects came our way, including residential and certain commercial projects also. And the way we approached each and every project, the major focus was always on the commercial or the budgeting side of it. And most of my clients happened to be developers, and they had very stringent budgets, but they also had this major aspiration of putting up a product, and they were really banking on me to kind of deliver that sort of a product. And in all my discussions and every design decisions we took, which related to either the planning or the structural analysis or the materials, one very important factor did come into the practice, and that was how to balance the aesthetics, functionality, and the budgets with which we are working. Because yes, being from developer segment, they would want to deliver a very high-end product, but at the same time, the scales and the materials which are being applied are so humongous that just a minor variation in specifications here and there can make a huge difference. So that's what we started understanding. I mean, this particular notion has been built into my practice understanding since several years, that as the projects go larger and larger, we are looking at several, probably 100 crores. The specifications have to be dealt with extreme caution. And once you start understanding that, even like a minor variation in the specification can create a huge difference. So I think the theme of this, forum, which is aesthetic versus business versus how the aesthetics are delivered into a project, the specifications and understanding of each and every item becomes very, very crucial.
Thanks, that's illuminating. I was going to go with Karan, but it seems I had to go in the right order. So Gaurav.
So I think when you pass architecture, I think you're all about passion and you have the dream and you really want to, just construct something spectacular. And once I passed architecture too, I was with all that passion. And then I think I come from a business background. So my parents told me that let's get you into a management college first and let's understand the business aspect of it also. So I graduated, I just did a small stint in a management college, and I understood the business side of whom I'm going to deal with, right? So I think when I started practicing architecture, again, it was, the growth curve was, it was just X, because there was more passion, and there was more passion, and there was more passion, because that is what is required at that stage. But once you start growing in your practice, and when your firm size becomes, starts growing, I think at some point you have to start looking at the economics in ways which you may not be very comfortable in looking at it, but yes, you have to address it because you have mouths to feed. So I think, as Ahana rightly said, that you have to strike that balance between design and economics. But yes, it's always a challenge. So I think you have to keep asking yourself that question, and you got to look deep inside and just trying to answer that I'm still, am I working for the money or I'm still working for the design? So till the time you get that answer right, I think we're good. So till now, it's good.
Karan?
I'm the youngest of all, okay? started my own practice, and the childhood dream of becoming an architect. And just like how Ratan sir said that you give anything and there is a market to take it, right? So as a child, whenever I used to see outside, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm going to be the messiah for the future generation to design like some really cool structures around. So if you ask me, I'm a very bad businessman, okay? I don't know, like with the practice that you guys have and with the practice that I do. But having said that, I think I'm a great designer, and I don't think that design and business can be different. We could be at different levels, perhaps. Like, so for example, if you see Zaha Hadid, all right? I think she's the king of architecture, okay? But if you see how many projects are built, there could be like, out of 100, there are only 10 that are built, you know? And on other hand, somebody else would be building more than 200 projects. So it's not this or that. I think it can be both together. So.
Great. Thanks for that, Karan. I'm going to move to the next question. To pardon a little bit the cliche, but when we talk about form follows function, follows feeling, and that's the googly here, which amongst aesthetics or practical considerations better addresses evocative architecture? So Purva, do you have a view on this?
Yes. So in our practice, we strongly believe in the form following the function. And it's primarily driven by the fact that once the functionality or the requirements of the space or the program or the requirements of the client is met with one single most purpose is to design that space perfectly. The form which generates off that is always pure in nature. So basically, I'm not doing anything to the form to arrive at the form with any softwares or any preconceived notions of how that form should be. But at the same time, I'm addressing all critical aspects. So sometimes in my design presentations or my pitch to the clients, I probably would talk about 10 to 15 constraints, the directions or the sunlight or wind or Vastu for that nature, or my existing MCGM bylaws. These are all different constraints which I need to balance effectively in addition to the aesthetics which I have in my mind at what the project is going to be looking like at the fag end. So even the client's budgets, his aspirations. So all these different, for the lack of better words, you're like juggling certain balls in the air. And then finally you arrive upon a design which kind of suits or kind of strikes a balance between all these different constraints. And that's where the pure form is originating. And yes, you have to work on a little bit of form. I'm not, I would not say that we haven't really looked at that aspect of architecture. So with the form, the elevations and the choice of materials also very, very important. But I think it's a net balance between all these different constraints, and that's where how the form evolves. That's what my firm belief is. Now, on a regular basis, I think all architects are being challenged. And when you kind of talk about the money, which is basically not your money. It's the client's money or the kind of budgets he's going to put it in the project. You as an architect is basically challenged on an almost everyday basis that, what sort of specification, what sort of, materials or what sort of technologies you're going to use to enhance the way the form comes out at the end.
Cool. I'd like to scrape a bit away at that answer for a bit, if I can, and anybody else feel free to jump in here. But what I was really after is this idea of evocative architecture, right? And that's what the question culminates in. So what do we mean when we say evocative? Is it a building that inspires a certain feeling, a certain reaction, a certain sensibility within you? And what best does that when you talk about aesthetics or practical considerations? I know it's quite hard to pull these apart from each other, but is it how it looks? Is it how it works? Is it the sensory experience that you have kind of curated for somebody that is navigating through the space? So what would you say is your top consideration for this idea of bringing out something that evokes?
So during our practice, during the kind of projects we've been working on, or especially which we've completed, one very strong theme which I've observed, or what I have noticed and understood over the period of time and over the years, is evocative architecture. The architecture which really dazzles you. I mean, like completely, like you would say, wow, is usually function following the form.
Okay.
It's usually like that, but in our individual practices, it's not that particular scenario which we are following, and the reasons I gave you in my previous sentence.
Okay, thank you. I think this leads kind of naturally into the next question, because we've been talking about evocative architecture, and I'd like to shift gears slightly and talk about iconic architecture. So the question here is, do aesthetically driven and iconic for the sake of being iconic buildings have a place in the world today? And this is something we touched on earlier, Karan, so would you like to jump in here?
Yeah. Again, I would like to quote Ratan sir, that you have a market for everything. So even if you have something which is state-of-the-art, iconic, but has zero functionality, it will still sell. And even if you have zero aesthetics, but fully functional, it will still sell, So I guess the question here is, can the two marry each other? And I feel yes. It can be iconic as well as having all the green certificates and all of it. So there is going to be a market for everything. So does it have a place in architecture? Yes, it does. But we have to know that who's the user, who's the client, and how sensitive they are towards it.
Cool, that's a pretty firm answer. Anyone else have a view on this? Do we have place in today's world for buildings that are iconic simply for being iconic? Anyone want to have a stab?
I would definitely say there is a place for iconic architecture,
Yeah.
and there's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
But to say that what sort of an architecture would be iconic is to first dwell into the minds of a particular corporate or particular institution or particular city or particular like a group of like organization, whether what constitutes the mindset to create an iconic architecture. I mean, a corporate can decide that I want to have like a really tall high-rise structure which is very iconic, but it's going to be my office building. I'm going to like showcase this particular building. So at that time, the notion of being iconic is on a very high extent. Like say, for example, Bilbao. You all know that how Bilbao Museum was won by Mr. Gehry, and what it did to the city of Bilbao. Yeah, it completely changed the nature of how Bilbao was viewed in terms of tourism.
No, it's a complete catalyst for regeneration, and it led to what you now call the Bilbao effect.
Exactly. So it's a Bilbao effect. So what I'm trying to say is the iconic architecture starts with a particular mindset or particular notion that I want to achieve this, or we want to showcase our cultural center or our high-rise office tower or our railway station in certain manner.
Yeah.
So it all originates from there. My observation is in these kind of building projects, the notion of budgets or the notion of functionality, as he pointed out, probably may take a back seat. I'm not saying that the functionality or budgets are not there, but probably in the origination of the idea, it may take a back seat. The corporate wouldn't check with their their directors or stakeholders that is it going to cost us a whole lot. Yes, it's going to cost you a whole lot if you are thinking of a very, very tall building.
Sure.
Yeah. So it originates like that, and then functionality and aesthetics and budgets are usually a part of the entire gamut of things, but you start from a different point of view.
No, I think that's great, because we seem to have consensus, because you're saying there definitely is space for iconic, and even if it's iconic for the sake of being iconic, but then what Apurva adds is a whole other layer, saying maybe it starts out as being iconic for the sake of iconic, but the knock-on effect that it can have on the community, on the area that it serves, can be quite positive and uplifting in a sense, and hopefully that's the best possible outcome of a building that is iconic, as we say, for the sake of being iconic.
I think it's always uplifting.
Yeah.
All iconic architectures are always uplifting.
So I feel it's a very sad state where we have to say that there is a place for something which is super iconic but doesn't have functionality. And that's where I guess like we as architects are very, we are responsible for designing something like that.
Yeah.
And also the client who is willing to compromise on everything else. And just have it to be an iconic structure. So I think it's hand in hand.
I think this question represents a rabbit hole that we can go down, because we can talk all about monuments, statues, you know, things like this that you're having thousands of crores of rupees being spent on, and there's always going to be a pressing opposite side saying, yes, but could the money not have been put to better use, to social infrastructure, to hospitals, blah, blah, blah. And what happens then to the aspiration? What happens to the idea of a nation, or the idea of a symbol, or the idea of a corporate house, or a bank, or whatever it is? So that's not tangible in a sense. So I think, anyway, we could spend a lot of time, but I'm going to jump. I should apologize, ladies and gentlemen, this debate is not very much of a debate so far. We have a lot of consensus, so I'm going to throw in a couple of further googlies here, perhaps. But yeah.
Sorry, can everybody hear us?
So imagine a building on both ends of the spectrum, that either it's so economically and functionally driven that it compromises on aesthetics, or it's aesthetically stunning, a work of art, but poorly conceived in terms of economic and functional constraints. And would both equally identify as architecture, and which one would you say captures the core of architecture better? Gaurav?
So if you're designing something which is affordable,
yeah.
So I think you have to have a certain set of rules which you set to create something affordable. You can't start, using materials which just jump up the cost. So I think it's what the project demands rather than what you want on the project is, I think, the better approach for, assessing on what side of the spectrum your architecture needs to, as an artist, you need to sway and give your aesthetics and lend your expertise, maybe in affordable, or maybe in a premium segment, or maybe in a mid kind of a project.
Sure.
So I don't, one size fits all will not be what I would, say for this specific thing.
Sorry, if I can add here. Again, I feel like affordability is very subjective, Like, whom are you catering to? Like, so for example, again, like what he said, but so if you're in front of millionaires, okay, and if you're talking about a 3 series and a 7 series, okay, we're talking about a 3 series is going to be affordable for me, But if you're talking with people who are looking at a segment of a Maruti Suzuki and some other brand, then an Audi is completely out of the list. So affordable also, I feel that in terms of architecture and iconic thing that we're talking about is basically all going towards the form of the structure more than what is inside or the material that is used. So I would like to give an example of the Maxi Museum, MA12 Museum in Rome, which was designed by Zaha Hadid, okay? It's just concrete, it's exposed concrete, so no fancy materials have been used. But the way the structure is, the way the architecture of the space is, you walk in and the moment you walk out, you would have tears in your eyes. So I feel like that experience is what we are looking at, And affordability in terms of, can I make give such an experience? Like, can I make those structures, those flexible structures, and do I want to spend on it? Or should I just make like a square box and give whatever I can? Yeah. So that's the...
No, I think that throws up an interesting kind of sidetrack about what constitutes luxury. And I mean, we've done some work in this segment as well. So for us, at least, we'd say luxury for us is not defined by expensive materials. It's defined by, at least for me, by utility, by the fact that I have understood how somebody lives, or like to think I've understood how they live or work or intend to use that space, and catered to their requirement in a way that makes their everyday life or those activities easier or somehow more delightful. And it doesn't matter if if it's plaster and paint on the wall or a 70,000 rupee marble. What matters is how you navigate and utilize the space and what the vistas are that open up. And so that's what I mean when I say luxury through utility. The other way of looking at it is, as you've said, for the Maxi, there's not fancy materials, but you could argue that a lot of Zaha's work, or if you want to go back, even like Sarnan and so on, is structural expressionism.
Yes.
Where the frames, the bones of your building are so visually expressive, and so if you want to talk about Calatrava's work, for example, right?
Yes.
You don't need the fancy marble.
Yeah.
The building itself, the design of the
Talks.
structural
Yeah.
system itself, and that's not cheap either.
It's not cheap.
But
either,
it's putting the money in a different direction,
Yes.
right? So that's perhaps another way of skinning it. Okay, I'm going to insist everybody answers this next question, and hopefully some of the gloves start to come off. But have you treated your practice and its growth as a business? What are some of the strategies that have helped you achieve success today as a designer? And I think I will leave open to you what you define as success, whether that's critical, whether that's financial, whether that's the satisfaction that you have at the end of the day, or the feedback that you get from your clients. So definition of success is up to you, but have you treated your practice as a business? Anna, let's start with you.
Yeah, I definitely do. Every day I'm thinking about how to make it better, how to run my business. On the other hand, my father is like completely checked out. He said, he's left it up to me, and he doesn't look much into the business of it, so I think we sort of found a way of working. I always look at our contracts, our fees, our budgets. I'm looking at that side of things, which gives him more time to sort of design. But success, I think it's an overall success. It's client feedback. It is, your inner success. How do you feel after a project has been done? It's multiple things. A financial success, obviously, I'm always thinking about that. Sure. Am I making a profit at the end of the day? I do have to run my business. I have to pay my employees. So that is definitely there. So I think it's sort of everything together. And I have to say, there are projects where we don't find success. I mean, they're failures. We don't get paid. I mean, we have client reactions are bad. So I mean, that's how the business works at the end of the day. Yeah.
Okay. Apurva?
So I'm just going to interject. Yeah, so I pretty much agree to whatever's been said. But as another layer of information, when I used to work a long time back in the United States, there used to be a very, very definitive system where each and every man-hour was calculated against a certain project, and my directors and my principals would kind of take recognition or this thing at the end of the month. They used to kind of balance out the incoming fees and how many man hours are spent. Now in our own practice we don't really do that, and there's not a real necessity to do that, but as a principal or as a director, we do tend to keep a tab on how much time realistically is being spent on a particular project. And I wouldn't necessarily restrict my people to kind of stop working where my profitability ends or my notion of profitability ends. But there has to be certain benchmarks, or probably not like a loosely defined system, or it's probably just like a how do you say, sixth sense that okay, you have to really make sure that these many people are working on this project for so many times or so many hours or so many weeks or so many months. Having said that, in the individual practice, you do tend to change those formulas on a daily basis, because certain times you would want to invest more than what you would think you would be doing at the start of the project. So you wouldn't, if the project is going in a certain direction, and you would want to make that project better for your own perceived success, or for your own professional certain closures, then you would want to change the net deployment of the human hours, and that's a daily struggle or a daily thought process which keeps evolving. I mean, I wouldn't be able to make a formula out of it, but it's a daily evolving sort of that's the best I can put it.
Gaurav?
I'm pretty sure his philosophy also would be similar to mine. We had a chat on that.
I think passion needs to be fed. So
people and stomachs also.
So yeah. That's what passion needs to be fed. So, so I think the way I see it is that it's not always about the money, right?
Yeah.
It's just that I think in the start of the project we think about when the contract is being laid out. And you know, at that point, you have an X requirement, you have an X outgoing, you have an X, you know, cost.
Yeah.
And then you factor in all of those aspects, and then you set a fee,
Yeah.
and then you go into the project. And I think as an architect, once you are into the project, the contract is behind you. And as I think everybody agrees, is then you are just like dedicated more than 100% into that project. And that time you don't start counting those man hours, and it doesn't happen that way, right? And there are projects which I've been working on. So there's a project which we just finished, which was 13 years down. So you can see that was as good as I started that project at the start of my practice,
Yeah.
right? And my contract was laid at that point, and I finished the project now. So I must have bled.
Yeah.
I must have bled real crimson in there.
Yeah.
But it is one of the best projects which I have executed.
Yeah.
So I think there's a blurred line out there.
Hmm.
But yes, when you, as I said, passion needs to be fed. So I think you have to be very, very clear of the economics. And once your practice grows, I think you have to be really crystal clear, because you can't like as you said, how do you define success? And then I would say that I define success that every morning I do what I love doing. And I think that defines success for me. So, but that cannot be running the firm, right? Because I can work for free,
Yep.
but my firm can't.
Yep.
So again, I have to like break away those two individuals. It's one is my identity as the founder,
Yep.
and then there is the firm's identity, because a company also has its identity. And that is where the flux happens, and that is where I feel the balance to strike between the founder and the firm when you're running a practice of that scale. That is where there is a fine line.
Yep. Okay. So, short answer for the record, have you approached your practice as a business?
Not really.
Okay.
Not yet. As I said,
Okay.
that I still
Okay.
feel I'm more of a designer than a
Yep.
businessman.
Yep. Great.
And that's how I actually came into the field, because I didn't enjoy maths
Yeah.
that much.
Yeah.
So,
Good. So now we're starting to get some fiction. We have a yes, a not really, and then Karan. Have you approached your practice as a business?
Sorry, so if I'm understanding the question right, it is either you're a businessman or you're an artist.
No, I don't think it's as polar or as black and white as that. I'm just saying that have you approached your practice with a view to growth as a businessman would? And when I say that, I mean perhaps if we scratch at the surface a bit, has there been an element of resource planning? Has there been an element of projection? Has there been an element of where do I want to be at the end of 3 years? How do I go after that? Or is it more sort of happy-go-lucky, bumbling along, let's see what comes up?
So, yes, of course, like I think anyone and everyone, be it be like 2 rupees or 2 crores or 200 crores, if you are giving a service, then you are into the business, right? Talking about the growth, and I differed here a little bit. Like, for example, like today, like we are a very young firm, like very small team compared to you guys. But for me, sorry, but this doesn't, I'm sorry, but you know that I have to feed people. के लिए मेरा business growth करने के लिए मैं कुछ भी ले लूँगा, मेरे को ऐसा problem नहीं आता है क्योंकि मेरा team ही मैंने कमती रखा है, you know. So that gives me an opportunity to take up what I really want and I want to do, you know. Although again, it is very subjective, different levels, different people. For him, something what is amazing may not be amazing for me, but whatever. I'm talking about myself. So it's being it so subjective. I am able to, so again, like I said, that if you talk in terms of growth and am I very successful in terms of how many projects I've done or what is my strength with the studio and all of that, if you may see, then I may not be so successful, you know. But in my eyes, I feel I'm extremely successful because I am living my childhood dream every single day, you know.
Super.
And I'm doing some crazy ass projects, and I feel that even if I'll have 100 people tomorrow, okay, I will still be doing this crazy ass project. Sorry for the word, crazy projects, and yet not have to worry about how will I feed these people, because somewhere the way I have been working right now for so many years of my practice, I feel awesome, you know, and under no pressure do I have to go and say, "Arey, chalo ye le lete hain, kyunki run karna hai," types. So that's the difference.
Okay.
So, but I think what also is important is the typology of the project we are working on. So, you know, whether it's a boutique project or it's a large scale project or it's a convention center or it's a large hotel or a big airport, you know, she would know. It depends on the typology of the project. So, you know, how many people you would require to execute working drawings or good for construction drawings for a particular type of the project also is equally important.
But that's why I think this
Now,
is a very good cross-section of panelists,
Yeah,
because we're
because
looking at practices ranging from 8 to, sorry, how many are you guys?
30.
30 to 23 to 40, which is a, sorry?
48.
48. Yeah, sorry, my bad. But very good cross-section. And the idea also that the people chosen to speak here today are working on vastly different types of projects with vastly different types of clients and outcomes and expectations. So the answers are going to be different, and I think somewhere that's the point, right? So, cool. Moving on, okay, this is also going to be one which will bring out the differences, but what would you say are the differences between noting the aesthetics and economics, or the whole topic that we're discussing today, and how does that differ between the practice of architecture versus interior design? Ahana?
We actually do both. We do have more interiors, but we do have sort of interior architecture projects. I feel for interiors, clients are more involved. They spend a lot of time, and budgets are higher for some reason. I mean, especially in residential projects also. Interior projects are faster, they take less time, you know, they're done, that's why we prefer them. Architecture projects take very long, 13 years, unless you're able to, you know, work on both, you have that patience, you have the time. I think both work very differently, but there's a way to sort of handle both of them differently,
Okay. Karan, Gaurav, have a view on this? You're also doing interiors in the course of the projects that you're doing.
So broadly speaking, I can break down the interiors practice of our organization into broadly two parts. One is B2B and one is B2C.
Yeah.
Now B2B is basically I'm doing interiors for my commercial developers, and you know, the way I approach those interior projects is very different. If I'm doing a high-end project for my a B2C client, it's a private client, or I'm doing a villa for my private client, the way we are approaching the interiors is a very different process. So in these kind of private interior projects, not only the main client is involved, his family, the housewife, their children, their cousins, their well-wishers, their family, their neighbors, everybody's involved. So we have to hear a lot of suggestions coming from every directions. Most of the suggestions not even technical in nature. So we are basically just explaining the same thing over and over to everyone. But if you look at the interiors which we are doing for our developers, it's purely a B2B sort of a situation where we do the drawings, we do the perspectives, we do the working drawings, and straight it gets to the execution, it's done. So a huge difference even in interior design.
Sure. Okay. Guys, do you have a view on how the topic we're discussing oscillates between architecture and interior design, or is it mostly?
I'm not too much out there in the interior space. We are primarily an architectural firm, and we try to do interior. We usually do interiors of our own projects. So I think I'm still not. So
the standalone interiors are limited for you guys.
We're not out there in that space yet.
Okay. What about you, Karan?
We do more of residential interiors and very few architectural projects. I'm an architect myself, so I love to do architecture and a one-to-one kind of space. So we're not into large scale like how she and him are into like airports and massive offices and like you are in like housing. So my scale just goes down a lot. So for me, मुझे इतना problem नहीं आता है because it is just like a 5,000 square foot villa that I'm designing. So I try and make that a crazy architectural form, okay? कि कल उठ करके अगर client बोल दे कि मेरे पास पैसा नहीं है अंदर को खर्चा करने के लिए, even then the space is going to be very beautiful as an experience for him. And eventually, if he does agree to give me the money also, okay, then we'll transform it into a different space.
Okay.
So
okay. I'm just going to do a time check. Alicia, how are we? The last question? Okay, great. So, with increasingly advanced technologies such as BIM handling the economics and functionality of a building, what do you see the role of an architect in the future? Will the architects solely contribute toward the aesthetic value of a design because the BIM is capable of crunching the numbers and extracting the quantities and you know, we've got a host of tools and I don't think we have the time to start talking about AI and intelligent systems and so on, but in general, where do you see the role of the architect as being?
I think it's perfect. I think we should have more such softwares so that it takes the load off us. We
Yeah.
are designing architects.
Yeah.
We are creative heads. We don't want to get into all this technical stuff and this math and everything. We want to hire people to do that. You know? And if the softwares can do for us,
Yeah.
more the merrier, man.
Well,
It's amazing.
the interesting part is that now the software is entering into the creative zone as well, right? Because
But of course, but they'll never be able to be us. You know,
No,
the
it's-
creativity
it's-
that he's going to bring on
it's-
board and what I'm going to bring, the
Yeah.
software will never be able to do that.
I mean, you've alluded to Zaha a couple of times, and
Yeah.
there was a very interesting talk that I was being told about by the students of one of the colleges where I taught, and they were saying that there was an AI, because until now, the machines have been able to do everything except concept design, right? They can draft for you, they can take off quantities for you, they can calculate structural loads for you, but so far the thing that we were always holding tightly and not letting go of was the conceptual design. And there was a very interesting seminar presentation that my students were telling me about, wherein they gave an AI a brief and asked it to design it in the style of Zaha, the architects. And brief was very, very clearly defined in terms of square meters per room and adjacencies and things like this. And I think the AI spat out about 80 designs.
Wow.
And they showed these two people at Zaha's, and the associates there said that at least 5 of those could have been produced by the studio.
Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, we need to pull up our socks, up our games, figure out how the machines work. I mean, this is a whole separate discussion, and Alicia is looking very, very concerned that I'm going to open a can of worms here. But anyone else who wants to jump in on this architect's role, is it going to be limited to how things look and how things work and not worrying about what they cost and how they stand? Anyone
I
have a
think
view on this?
that would be ideal, as Karan said,
Yeah.
if we could get our machines to do all the, you know, crunch the numbers, quantities, everything. I mean,
Yeah.
we are slowly getting there, and we're
Yeah.
trying to get into BIM and things, but I think we as people are very behind, not able to sort of transform and, you know, change our roles. So till that happens, till we change our mindset, till we're able to, you know, adopt these new technologies. I
But
don't
guys,
think
aren't we supposed to be the ones who are marrying the art and the technology, and aren't we supposed to be the mother of all arts and
Yeah, but
the people who, you know,
But we-
sorry, I'm
we
just
do marry the two,
throwing
right?
some spice into the mix here. But
We do marry the two. But okay, so if I have to say 2 things to this.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot about what, between AI and what we are doing. You know, there's this one ad by Vijay Sales. You go online and you ask for Jenga, you know, and the internet doesn't understand and shows everything else but Jenga, you know. And then the ad says that come to Vijay Sales because there is one-on-one communication and
Yeah.
we'll help you write what is going to be suitable for you.
Yeah.
So I guess that's where the architects are going to come into the picture. And second thing is कि अगर दुश्मन से फाइट नहीं कर सकते तो उसको दोस्त बना लो, you know. तो जो सॉफ्टवेयर्स वगैरह अवेलेबल है, जैसे for example AutoCAD, you know, who knew that earlier when people were drafting with hands, AutoCAD is going to be not a rival but a friend,
Yeah.
you know. तो ऐसे ही अगर ये टूल्स को हम एक डिफरेंट पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से देख करके if we make them our friends and use them for our own benefit, perhaps it may turn
So I'm
out
saying
crazier.
that's not happening. I find we are still, you know, little resistant
Eventually
to new
we'll do it.
technologies. Yeah, that's ideal.
As
yeah.
long as we keep getting to wear the concept designer hat, basically. Right? Yeah, okay. Great. Guys, either of you have anything to add, or I'm going to throw open for questions, if that's okay. Alicia, should we? Yeah? Okay, so hopefully this was lively. I tried to stir it up a little bit when everybody was in agreement. So I'm sure all of you are bursting with pertinent and relevant questions. So anybody who wants to ask anything specific, particular, general, complaints, concerns, comments, don't all put your hands up at once.
We have a wide range of practices, a wide range of ages, scales of the projects that they're working on are all different. Any questions? Young architects in the crowd, older ones?
Hello, good evening, everybody. Yeah, I found this debate, the topic very interesting, but I was all the time thinking it was aesthetics and versus eco-friendliness or sustainability, because I don't know why we are not considering that fact. People use very lavish materials. So many materials are not at all eco-friendly, and we are losing on our mental health, physical health.
Yep.
Chinese products are coming in, and a lot of them are just below the gradable level. So all that things are more to be, like you just asked, talk about your concerns.
Yep.
And secondly, what I thought was like, many times aesthetics are possible even by very small things, very eco-friendly materials, or some materials which are not really costly, but just because we have to see to our business, or we have to earn more, get profits, so we use we just increase the budget of the client, because most of the interior design practice is based on the commission. And so more the cost you derive for the client, more commission the interior designers get. So that practice many times, make the client spend so much even if it's not required. So all that things I wish you all great architects could have talked about. Yeah.
Right. So if I've understood you correctly, the first part of your question is that you're not happy with the subject of the debate. You wish it was something else. So that's something I'm going to ask you to take up with the organizers, I'm afraid, because we can only talk about what the debate is. But the second part, anybody has an opinion on this? Like, why do we not put in more eco-friendly materials or look to keep the budgets down?
Again, that's very debatable, because who said that expensive products and branded products are not eco-friendly? Like, for example, like Jessie or Groha and all these brands, okay, if you use their sanitary fittings, they use 60% less water, and there's so many other things that they incorporate. And even though if it is coming from Italy and we're using it in India here, you also have to see how the product is manufactured. So if you go back and see their factories, okay, so I know this because these guys come and give us their presentations and all of that, and that's how I've known and I've been proud to use these brands, is because how it is manufactured. So the old age technologies of how the product was manufactured in terms of the water and chemicals and everything has been treated, The way the product is manufactured, the people that are making it, and all of it. So I think it's a myth which people need to come to terms to, that in today's day and age, most of the luxurious brands are eco-friendly than your local brands, So it's all supply and demand as well. I mean, like the most eco-friendly thing will be to use like a local stone, but Bombay में local stone है ही नहीं, कहाँ से आएगा? आप कहीं से break करोगे, transport का खर्चा करेंगे, इधर लेकर के आएंगे, तो that's not eco-friendly at all, But तभी तो country grow कैसे होएगा, architects का role किधर से आएगा, और आप लोग कैसे grow होएंगे अगर infrastructure नहीं होएगा तो, So the ACC cements are manufactured in Himachal. तो उधर से लेकर के down south जाता है, तो कैसे जाता है? It's not eco-friendly at all. But otherwise, how do you build the structures? If you're staying in Bombay, how do you think your high-rise is going to be built? If it is not cement, concrete, none of these. So I think it's I'm sorry, but बोलने में बहुत सुंदर लगता है कि eco-friendly और sustainable वगैरह, but जब भी actually में आप execute करने जाते हैं, okay, तो definitely there is some sensibility when you select a particular product or particular brand. But beyond that, what do you do? So you have those Spanish brands for pipes, okay? A regular pipe quotation for a villa will be like, say, for 40,000 rupees. Theirs is like 10 lakh rupees. But the most eco-friendly product that you can find on this planet, who's going to spend 10 lakh rupees, against 40,000? मतलब 10 लाख में से एक जन शायद, तो मतलब we are तो more than happy to propose and use eco-friendly products. आप हमारे लिए clientele बढ़ा दीजिए जो इसको करेगा, या फिर जो बेच रहे हैं, okay, उसको बोले कि अपना प्रॉफिट्स कम करके हमको कायदे से दे दे, तो ज़रूर यूज़ करेंगे.
Anyone else from the audience bursting with questions? Gentleman there in
Could
the black
could
shirt.
we keep the questions for the end of the evening now? Was that okay? Okay, last question.
Also, sorry, one thing that you also pointed out that architects and interior designers charge their commissions over the projects. Okay, I have heard that. To be really honest, we've also done that, but I don't think anybody who's taking that is perhaps wrong, because most of the times our last installments never come in. You know, we've not done that, but I'm sorry, but we're not paid for our services. You know. And it's so stupid that by default also, for example, if we've proposed Havells and if they've goofed up, our entire money stopped because why? This guy is your vendor, you know. तो like अभी मैं इनका डायलॉग बोलूँगा कि मेरे को भी कंपनी चलाने का है, खुद का पेट पालने का है, दूसरे का करने का है, कैसे चलाऊँगा अगर हमको पैसा नहीं मिलेगा तो, you know. So sorry. Sorry.
I was just raising this question. What are the eco-friendly products? As you were discussing, let's assume that you want something for claddings, like for a wardrobe cladding. We use a laminate, that's a paper which is laminated, right? After that, even if you use a veneer, you are going to coat it with a PU or a lamination. That itself is not an eco-friendly product. Third, as our, you can say, forefathers or the previous people used to use. They used to use the planks, and they were French polished. Those are eco-friendly products, but no one is using it, right? So I think so it's okay for a debate, but it's not worth using at the interiors, right?
No,
What is your take?
So again, I'm sorry, does anybody want to speak?
No, personally, I think that even you know, the veneer or wood or, you know, for that matter, the planks you are mentioning, I don't think so it's eco-friendly because you're cutting the trees. Yeah. So, you know, you're basically talking about the polyurethane and the polish, but that's much later. You're first targeting the trees, you're slicing them in smaller segments. You are basically peeling the skins and creating veneers.
So I asked you, what are the products we can use which are eco-friendly?
It will be a yet another debate and a very prolonged discussion to define what's eco-friendliness.
That's why I said it's okay for a debate, but not practical.
I'm going to come in wielding my moderator sword again because this is like, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right, and that's a perfect topic for the post-debate drink session.
Yeah.
But for now,
But
I think we have to wind up.
at the stores, right?
No, but the purpose is
available
that
at the
I think it's slightly beyond the scope of the discussion that we're having today, because these are perfectly valid points that you both raised, but we're not talking about sustainability as much as we're talking about cost versus aesthetics. So I think suggestion box outside for next debate discussion topics is open. But thank you, everybody. And we're going to give way to the, I don't want to say seniors, but the doyens is what they call. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the interest from the audience and Praveer for moderating that session so wonderfully. All the enthusiasm from the panelists. I would request for you to wait back while the felicitation happens. Could we have some music? I would also like to call Mr. Rajesh Pillai and Vishal Dudeja, Manager Marketing and Communications of the Lalit Mumbai, on stage for the felicitations. Please give them a huge round of applause. Ahana Miller, Principal Architect, ABM. Vishal. Apurva Parekh, Founder and Director, Apurva Parekh Architects. We have Gaurav Sanghvi next, Director, Pentaspace. Karan Desai, Principal Architect, Karan Desai Architecture Plus Design. And last but not least, please put your hands together for the brilliantly moderated session by Praveer Sethi of Studio Hinge. And moving immediately on to the next panel discussion as well. We now have the much-awaited Doyens panel discussion, one which we've been waiting for with bated breaths. They are the stalwarts, the stars of our fraternity, And it is being moderated by none other than the fantastic architect Manish Dikshit, design principal at Om Architects. Please give him a huge round of applause.
Hi, good evening. So I'm going to make it short and simple and sweet because the points that I'm going to raise is important. At the same time, it needs to be crisp and clear. With that, I would like to call in the two ladies in the debate today, architect Padmini Pandey and Santa Gaur. Can I also have architect Karl Vadia from Architect Hafiz Contractor, Senior Associate, and Rajesh Pillai. This would not be possible without you. Havels. So coming to the important topic about economics versus aesthetic, or however you like to call it, there is always a thin line we all have understood whether every project needs to be expensive for it to look aesthetically appealing. Now, when you look at that question and try to interpret that in your projects, you don't need everything to be expensive. Am I right? So, we have the best example here in terms of Karl, when you do a lot of projects where it's economically viable also. And it's not because it's economics is into consideration when it comes to low-income housing or economical housing overall. And do you think that that plays an important role in the aesthetics also of the design of the buildings?
Yeah, hi. So I think the topic is quite interesting, and to be very frank, economics drives architecture to a very good extent. And I feel that the earlier one realizes that it's better. Very often we have clients who come in, they want to do a good project, and the initial desire is that, it should look good. It should look ke kharcha kiya hai. People actually say that.
But do you really need to do kharcha to make it look good?
Exactly. No, of course not. So often the skill required in designing a good project doesn't necessarily mean that you have to spend a lot of money. And a large part of what we do is actually on the economical side of the spectrum. So straight answer to your question is you don't have to do kharcha to make the design look good. Yeah. Now what looks good is different for everybody.
Yeah. So I think with this, Padmini can really throw more light in this question. When it comes to luxury homes, especially in terms of interior that you do expensive products, expensive brands, they are the ones who demand and they create an aesthetic value to that project or not?
Thank you, Manish. Good evening, everyone. So I'll tell you what. I do hotels, I do luxury homes. So it'll be ironical, but my point of view is very different in spite of coming from the luxury background. But as Karl mentioned, I think design has nothing to do with budget. It doesn't mean to make a good design, you have to spend a lot of money. And this is ironical because I do luxury projects and I use a lot of luxury products. But I always tell my clients one thing that, see, there are two ways of looking at it. You have a client who has all the money in the world and they want to spend, like for example, a small bag will do his job, even a normal phone will do his job, but somebody has the money, they want to buy an iPhone. So it's this is luxury, okay? So luxury, and it's not wrong. It's not wrong if you have the money to enjoy your money and spend in the kind of brands you want. But the way I look at it is I do this for my clients because they enjoy that kind of branding. And that branding is, I think, what makes the real difference. Today, like for example, I'll just give an example, like an artist. Today, if you see an M.F. Hussain art, it'll cost you some crores of rupees, right? But even there's a young artist coming out of school or colleges, they'll probably be doing a better art than even M.F. Hussain. And probably the material, the amount of money that has gone into making that art by the student or probably the M.F. Hussain would have been the same amount of money. But it's the brand that has changed the dynamics of the economics. So today the painting that he's charging and vis-a-vis what a young artist is charging is so different. But probably, it's subjective. Art is subjective, right? I would probably like the young artist's work better. So, design has nothing to do with money, budget, economics. I believe that economics is not just about, the economics in terms of money, but is in terms of economics of design. So even when I do luxury, I think it has to be very responsible. We cannot, over-design. We cannot go overboard just because the clients have money. We cannot just splurge and spend. It has to come with a certain responsibility. So I think that, to answer your question simply, that yes, even when you do luxury and you're going with brands, but I think you have to be responsible when the kind of brands you're suggesting, and not just because they have a Fendi tag or a Bentley tag. That's not the way to approach design. That's my point of view.
Okay, so Santa, in terms of economics, do you believe that because you took a little extra time to design a particular project, are you going to charge more to the client?
We can't. We can't. As I think Gaurav rightly said, projects stretch on for years. I have a project which I started in 2014, still going on. We can't charge more.
So we do stick on to the aesthetic bit of it, forgetting about the economics. So architects are bad in that way, right?
We don't bother about our economics.
Yeah.
We are more bothered about the
But we are not even good at that.
Not at
Yeah, so in terms of your aesthetic, you're taken the same question what I asked Padmini earlier. Do you really believe that the brands are the ones they matter when it comes to aesthetic or no? Or it's just the aesthetic element that we talk about which are only enhanced by these exclusive premium products that we are using in our projects? It could even be in architecture, not necessarily only be in interior designed projects.
So I don't personally believe in brands using high-end luxury brands like a Fendi or a Versace or something, but there are clients who demand that. And as Padmini said, if the client asks for it, yes, we will use it in the best possible aesthetic situation, in the best possible aesthetic format. But I don't think a brand or a luxury brand, high-end brand will really enhance the aesthetic value of the project, if that's what you were asking.
So, like Karan rightly said about the Spanish brand selling high-end, the pipes. So, you may not call it luxury because it's expensive. It is giving you some solution for some various reasons, like wastage of water, or you can call it heat generation, etc., etc. Do you think that would you term it as luxury, or will you talk it as economically viable aesthetic? Carve this for you, sorry.
Okay. So, I mean, we unfortunately don't get to specify plumbing from Spain, but I don't think a good product can be called luxury. It's like, in the auto industry, somebody talked about 3 Series, 7 Series. This whole topic, aesthetics versus economics, I don't know at which point in the last 20, 25 years, both of these topics ended up being on different sides of the fence. Because I think there was a movement called modernity or modernism that happened, and suddenly, anything that is aesthetically pleasing almost became shameful in nature to, embrace. I completely don't subscribe to that. Having said that, the modernist era gave us some of the best buildings that we know of today, and we learn from them. But it's not a big divide, and anything that you use that is good in quality doesn't necessarily need to fall into the category of luxury. But having said that, one small thing that I do not agree with my friend in the previous panel is you'll be surprised at what all is available in this country. Yeah. And the carbon offsetting of bringing something from Himachal to Bombay is far less than the carbon spent bringing it from Italy. So on a sustainable note, maybe that will help you make different decisions in the future.
Great. So finally, what you meant to say is Sasta, Tikau, best, they go in one go only, which is what is expected from the client, and we have to have that thin line between kisko sasta karna hai, nahi karna hai. Am I right?
Appropriate.
Yeah. So Rajesh, in terms of Havells as brand, how does your brand fit into this whole equation of economics, aesthetic, luxury?
Yeah, Manish, we strongly believe that this aesthetics, functionality, and economics should go in parallel. Because if you look at, over a period of time, if you look at in a modern office, maybe 5 years back, about 90% of the lighting used to be functional lighting and only about 10% used to be decorative. But in the current scenario, it is like 50-50. So with post-pandemic, the corporates welcoming the employees back to office, they want to make it more warm, they want to make it more engaging. So more than about 50% of the lighting is still done by the decorative stuff. So that is one paradigm shift which has happened in the modern space. And even if you look at the functional lighting as well, people doesn't want to use a normal 2x2s or a downlighters, or a linear fixtures. Even in that, people look for different shapes, curves, deep recessed downlighters. So there is a complete paradigm shift which has happened in the lighting industry in coming with this aesthetics part which coming in. Maybe 10 years back, there was absolutely no aesthetics. People were looking at light as only a illumination. Now light is much beyond illumination. So we as a company strongly believe that all these things should go in parallel. So what we did is that, we went to the customers, we showed to the architects with the end users and develop a product which can fit in their budget as well. Because all these decoratives coming in, but still customer doesn't want to pay, They want to still do the office maybe with that 50 or 100 rupees per square feet. So all that pressure is always there on us. But with our R&D and with our manufacturing facility, we could try and bring a solution which is more or less meeting the budget of the customer. But to answer your question, yeah, there is a complete paradigm shift which has happened as far as the decorative lighting is concerned.
Yeah, I think we all have seen a great shift in the last 3 years with the pandemic happening and the way our customers are expecting things out of all of us today. Yeah. So, Santa, there's one more question for you. Do you think how can we ensure that architecture interior design is accessible to people of different income group and just not for the people who are spending money?
Well, you have a lot of these, I'll take names, I'm sorry, but you have, correct? You have a live space, you have a bonito, you have so on, I'm sorry. No offense to anybody, but you have those which are accessible to all kinds of budgets. IKEA, yes, thank you, Bhakmini. So you have these brands which make good design accessible to a lot of people. Yeah.
And Padmini, does cultural value and social expectation impact the balance between aesthetic and economics in architecture and interior design?
It does. I mean, I'll just make it simpler by giving an example. Like if you're doing a residence interiors, okay? So you're talking about cultural and you're talking about social. So, like I'm currently designing a 5-storied house in Khar, which is owned by a Gujarati family and a joint family having 5 generations in the same house, okay?
Tough life.
Yeah?
Tough life.
Very tough. No, but I'm having a blast also, but it's a little tough. But I'll explain the social and the cultural thing there. So imagine it's 5 generations and, they are so different. Of course, the youngest generation wants all the tech and this and that, and the oldest generation wants hospital beds and attendant room and all that stuff happening there. So imagine balancing that whole thing. And budget is not an issue, I wouldn't say, because that's not a point, but balancing that whole 5 generations.
What was the budget?
That has still not come to, but anyways, the point is that balancing that 5 generations in terms of design, I'm talking purely design here, nothing else. But you know what, I have suddenly realized that I'm doing more than a designer's job. I'm actually being a counselor, I'm actually being a mediator between the generations.
I would really add to this. I was driving her here to this event today, and throughout the way she was getting non-stop calls, and I could hear on the other side people screaming, and she's so calm. Oh, I'm going for a debate. I'll talk to you tomorrow peacefully.
No, so the conversation is talking about the husband and wife are fighting on the phone. They have the Eid tomorrow, the house handover, and they are fighting over some window railing, something. And I actually told them, guys, calm down, there's nothing to fight, it's not the end of the world. Anyways, and then they calmed down. I said, don't worry, I'll talk to him. He said, Padmini, please talk. He listens to you, he doesn't listen to me. Okay, fine, I'll talk to him tomorrow, or I'll talk to him at the end of the day. Anyways, coming back to this family, you won't believe it, we have a common group where the whole family is, and each member, each couple of the families make separate groups without knowing that each other is doing it. And they have added me on that, and I'm just going crazy, and I'm like, guys, you need to pay me for a counselor also. I'm here a counselor, come an architect and a designer, this is too much. But this is what it is, so design is, today, see, there are 2 ways. I'm an architect, we do architecture projects also, but it's a very emotional space to be in. And I think it's a blessing. I love what I do, so I don't mind, playing this balancing act between generations. But at the same time, you get so emotionally invested in your projects, whether it's an architecture project, when you're making a building, you become emotionally, you have to be emotional, you have to be sensitive. If you're designing a building, you have to be sensitive to the building on the left, to the building on the right, to the building in the front, so that your building is beautiful, but it doesn't have to be a monument and just, sticking out for the wrong reasons. You have to respect the neighborhood, you have to respect the space. Same context when you come to the family, when you come to interiors, you have to respect the people involved, even if they may be the most difficult people, but you have to respect them, and thankfully I have the patience and the calmness to do it. But it is, at the end of the day, we are a very social and a very cultural country, very rich in our cultural roots, very, very strong in our social being, and I'm very proud of that. I think that's a great thing. So I don't have any complaints, even though I have to do all these unexpected, unwanted jobs, but I think it's great. So you have to balance it.
Unwanted job, 5-floor building.
No, I mean unwanted of counseling between the families.
I'm not going to drop you back now.
She sounds like she's loving it.
No, it's okay. It's a part of the job, what to do.
So I feel finally, all of us, especially me, I realized that some of the best projects I have done in my life, aesthetically appealing, has been during my initial days of my career. And that was when the cost was probably 1/10 of what we are spending for our clients today. And I think that was the most satisfying thing. So cost is the last thing that you need to do as an architect. I think we all are able, we know the aesthetics, that you don't need to spend money to make things look great. With that, I would like to end this discussion. I'm making it short and sweet for everyone because I think the bar is open. I could see some people sneaking by. And not only that, and I can see the timer and somebody flashed the timer again. But yeah, so thank you very much. I would like to ask, have the audience ask more questions because I think we did not do justice earlier.
This is something which I wanted to bring up in our debate, but we ran out of time, so I'm chucking it into yours and hopefully we get a more qualified opinion. But when we talk about economics, I mean, the aesthetic part, which we have been all very well versed with it. For the economics part, are we talking about specifically the economics of construction activity only and engineers? Or are we also talking about, as we touched on our debate, the economics of running your practice and what does that entail?
No, the first one, not about running your business because I think that turns to a different direction.
Okay, no, then there's no question, so thanks.
But I would like to add one point to this, guys. So, when you say aesthetic versus economics, I think it should not just be about the economics of, in terms of money. I think it should be economics of design as well, because sometimes we architects get so carried away and we are so excited about the project and, as some of the next gen guys mentioned that, we want to do this, we want to do that. So we have to not over-design, we have to understand what the project needs and where it's located and the context and whom are we catering to, and it should not become a personal monument for us, It's not about us, actually, it's about that. So I think we should also look at it from economics of design. Also, it's very important, just versus economics of money, That's how I see it.
I want to add one thing. I think we are sitting in a live example of, what is the topic? Aesthetics versus economics. Because I don't know who realized that in the first panel, you could hear the other conference coming in here. So clearly, the aesthetics point, I'll not comment. But that was missed out. And then, of course, the reverberation time of the acoustics from the mic when it comes back, I was hearing you twice. Yeah. So.
No, I was trying to speak fast 2 times.
I noticed that as well.
Yeah, any questions, guys? Okay, I think we are good to go then. Thank you.
Manish, you've surprised us all by ending it so quickly. Are we sure there are no more questions from the audience? There were a few hands raised during the next gen panel. Moving on with the felicitation, I would like to invite Mr. Bibho Srivastava and Mr. Indrajit Sauji on stage. Let us have a huge round of applause. Karl Wadia, Senior Associate, Architect Hafiz Contractor. A round of applause, please. Padmini Pandey, Principal Architect, Studio Padmini Pandey. Rajesh Pillai, National Sales Head, Professional Lighting, Havells India. Santha Gaur, Principal Architect, Infinity Design Studio. And of course, our dear moderator, Mr. Manish Dikshit, Design Principal, Om Architects.